Hi there, this is Jonathan Ginsberg. I'm a personal bankruptcy attorney here in the Atlanta area, and today I'd like to talk to you about what your options are as far as staying in your house after filing Chapter 7. Filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy, can you stay in your house? Well, the answer to that depends on a number of different factors. First of all, if you intend to stay in your house and you want to reaffirm the mortgage, you would need to be current or relatively current when you file your Chapter 7. And when I mean relatively current would mean that you can bring your mortgage current within a very short period of time, within 60 to 90 days, and that you have a limited amount of equity in your house. Because again, if you're filing Chapter 7, you want to be able to exempt whatever equity you have. As an individual, you can protect $22,500 of equity. For a married couple, you would double that, $45,000. But assuming you have limited equity and you're relatively current or current, you could reaffirm your mortgage, stay in your house, and go on down the road as if you never filed bankruptcy at all. That's one option as far as keeping your house and reaffirming it. A second option would be to go into a Chapter 7 and not reaffirm the debt. And what that means is you would not formally reaffirm the debt, but you could, in many cases, do what they call a stay and pay. And this is going to work if you, again, have usually very little equity in the property, so there's no problem with the trustee trying to seize any equity against you. So again, if this is usually with people who have little or no equity, but they're not current with their mortgage, but they want to stay anyway. And what you're banking on in that situation is the mortgage company does not want your house back. They don't want the inventory. So if you're willing to continue making payments, you can work something out with the lender where you can catch it up over time. Many times we find that lenders will let you stay in the house, continue to make the payments on it, catch them up as you can catch them up, and you stay in the house without a formal reaffirmation. The downside to that is twofold. Number one is that the payments that you make going forward are not going to show up on your credit report as a positive type of thing. And a lot of times people get upset about that because they want to show they've been made payments, help rebuild their credit. If you don't reaffirm, it will not show up on your credit as making payments at all. The second thing is the bank does not have to reaffirm with you. They don't have to let you stay on stay in the house. They could continue to accept your payments, and then 2 years from now, they could decide to foreclose against you if the property values go up, for example. So it's a little bit dangerous there. Although, again, my experience has been if you're making payments and you're making an effort to stay and pay, most lenders are pretty much willing to take your money, but that could certainly change. And of course, as I said, there's no guarantee they're going to let you do that. I've had people try to do that, and then 3 or 4 months after bankruptcy, lo and behold, they get a foreclosure notice. So there's not much, you don't have any leverage against them if they do that. Now, the third option would be to go into a Chapter 7 and say, I'm going to surrender my house. Now, if you do that, what's going to happen is that nothing's really going to happen for 2 to 4 months. And basically, the automatic stay in bankruptcy is going to protect you for 2 to 4 months while the bankruptcy case is kind of processing through. And most of the time, lenders are not going to file a motion for relief from stay because the bankruptcy itself will be over in 4 or 5 months. So while the case is still existing, you'll be able to stay in the house, and then probably for another 2 to 4 months after that, because they've got to go through the foreclosure process. So normally, if you file Chapter 7 and you're intending to surrender the property, you're looking at probably 5 to 7 months before you actually have to leave. Could be faster, but that's kind of typical. So that's the situation where you need a short-term place to stay. And I will also tell you that in some circumstances, lenders are very, very slow to go ahead and process a foreclosure. I've seen situations where people stay in a house, no cost, they're not paying mortgage, they're not paying anything. They're staying in the house for a year, 2 years, while the lender kind of dilly-dallies around and doesn't do anything. Now, I think we're probably going to see less of that because I think a lot of lenders were hesitant to foreclose because of some issues with foreclosure process and irregularities and notice and things like that. I think a lot of that stuff is being resolved, and I think lenders also are seeing that property values are coming back up and they don't mind taking the inventory back. But I've seen a number of cases where people stay in the house for months or even years without paying anything because a lender doesn't do anything. So that's also another possibility. But I wouldn't assume any of this stuff. I think that what you should assume if you're going to surrender your property, that you'll need to be out within, let's say, 6 to 8 months, something like that. and make arrangements to move if, in case it happens even faster. So those are your options. So the short answer is, if you file Chapter 7, you're not going to have to leave right away, except in very, very rare circumstances when you have a very hyper-aggressive lender. They file all kind of motions and things like that. Very rare that's going to happen. I'd say 99% of the time you'll be able to stay in the house for at least, say, 5 to 7 months, and then again, if you want to keep it and stay there longer indefinitely, you can do that. But again, it depends on the particular circumstances. This is something that, when somebody calls me about this, we'll go through all the possibilities. I'll maybe have some perspective on the particular lender. I may call the lender's attorney to get some sense from them what's going on as well. But that's kind of a big picture of how staying in a house and or not staying in a house in Chapter 7 and how all that works. And I think the big picture you can also sense is that nothing in bankruptcy happens very quickly. It's all a fairly drawn out process, and you can use that 5 to 7 months to sort of restructure yourself and kind of get yourself in a better position without having any expense for living expenses. Even for a short period of time, it can be a big help. So hope this has been helpful to you. Any questions about this? And I realize I threw a lot of detail at you, but please feel free to call me. Happy to talk to you about it. If you did find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube or a like on Facebook. Subscribe to our channels, both YouTube and Facebook, and let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks a lot.